So, who owns Stonehenge? Now, I'm a researcher. I've been looking into this for a long time, and I've had lots of questions and answers about this subject given to me. So, here we are. This is it, a deep dive into ownership of Stonehenge. So, the oldest record of somebody owning the land that Stonehenge is on, is from 899 AD. How do I know this? Well, because that's when Amesbury Abbey was created. Now, Amesbury Abbey is one of the oldest abbeys in this country, in the country of England, where I am now. And Alfred is one of our oldest kings. He fought against the Vikings and burnt the cakes famously. If you like Last Kingdom, he's in that series, although slightly romanticised, let's be honest. But in 899 AD, after the creation of the Abbey of Amesbury, this land that I'm stood on now became theirs, was under their control. So we know that the oldest owners date all the way back to 899 AD. Now, it gets a bit grey now until King Henry VIII comes along. So we're going to assume that it was looked after, owned by the church. Now, less keen historians of you may not know this, but Henry VIII had a mighty falling out with the church, and he wanted to get married yet again, and divorced as well. So what he did was he creates his own sort of church, like you do. But to grease the wheels of marriage, so to speak, he wanted to get the hand of a lady known as Jane Seymour. And Jane Seymour's brother, I'm pretty sure it's her brother, might have been her cousin, it's one of the two. Anyway, Edward Seymour was given Stonehenge as a gift by Henry VIII. And it's in his family for quite a long time. And then it pops up in the Marquis of Queensberry's ownership. Now, the Marquis of Queensberry, I think it's the 9th Marquis of Queensberry, is famous for codifying the rules of boxing, inventing how people punch each other fairly. Isn't that nice? And it ends up in his family till 1825, when he sells it to the marvellously named Sir Edmund Antrobus. Now, there are 4 Sir Edmund Antrobuses, and it gets confusing because they're all called Sir Edmund Antrobus, and they all live in the same house, and it's easy to get them mixed up. But ultimately, the 4th Edmund Antrobus, Sir Edmund Antrobus, he's really forward-thinking. He seems a bit more relaxed than the others. He is the one who straightened Stone 56 in 1901. He's the chap who puts a charge up for Stonehenge. He closes off the footpaths. He even, in 1905, swears down as a druid on summer solstice with a couple of local MPs. So if you can't beat them, join them sort of scenario. And it's Edmund Antrobus the 4th who is key with Stonehenge and its ownership now. Now, he was trying to auction Stonehenge off. World War I starts up, and his son is drafted. Off he goes to fight and is sadly killed in 1915. Now, also in 1915, very shortly afterwards, Edmund Antrobus passes away. Now, there's stories about him dying of a broken heart and all that sort of stuff, but we do know that he really did look up to his son, like all parents do, look up to their children. So, where are we now? We're at 1915. There is no owner apparent, and Stonehenge is put up for auction. It's put in auction in Salisbury, in a hotel, and people are sent to try and buy it. The National Trust were tipped off that about £10,000 should be enough to grab Stonehenge for their own, and they send the money off in a case with a gentleman to go to the auction in Salisbury. Now, the rumour is that he never got there. The train got cancelled, it broke down, or something happened. So we end up with this very tense auction, and local hands are being raised to try and get Stonehenge itself. Now, believe it or not, it was sold for £6,600, which isn't very much money back then, really. I mean, it's quite a lot of money, but not a huge amount of money for something like Stonehenge itself. And Cecil Chubb, a local cricketer, bought it. How did a local cricketer have that much money? Well, he married very well to a lady called Finch, Rebecca Finch, and she was the heir to a very large hospital in Salisbury, the largest asylum in Europe, actually. He's supposed to have been sent to buy curtains and carpets and tables and chairs, but he came away with the mighty Stonehenge. So, Edmund Antrobus takes his last breath and passes away. Sir Cecil Chubb wins the auction, and he is now the boss of Stonehenge. And while he's running it, it's the middle of World War I. There's a lot of stuff going on. So he decides the ticket cost, every single ticket is collected, the money will go to the Red Cross to help all the injured people and help with the war effort. So in 1918, after a huge amount of pressure from the press and a chap called Edmund Mond, Cecil decides to finally to give Stonehenge away, to gift it to the nation. Now he does so, he writes a very nice speech and he gives it, stood on top of the stones, and it's less than about a month or so before he is named Sir Cecil Chubb, and Stonehenge is passed to the government, or to make a more accurate statement, to Her Majesty's, or His Majesty's back then Her Majesty's, and now His Majesty's government yet again. And it's been looked after by the Ministry of Works for many, many years, until eventually they are disbanded and English Heritage are created in 1984. And they are a quango, a group created by the government to look after government interests. And that is why English Heritage look after Stonehenge now. They are the custodians of the site. Ultimately, Stonehenge is the nation's. It's all of ours. But if you were to look on the ownership certificates, you'll see it's His Majesty's. Anyway, have a fantastic day. I hope you know a little bit more about the ownership of Stonehenge now, and thank you for coming on a deep dive. Bye-bye.